The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows of Gwen Stefani's quiet home studio, casting long golden beams across stacks of lyric sheets, old notebooks, and a half-finished cup of matcha on the table. The room hummed with the soft buzz of an amp Gwen had forgotten to turn off. She stood barefoot on the rug, her hair piled in a loose bun, scrolling absently through TikTok as she waited for Blake to finish feeding the horses back in Oklahoma. She only opened the app to pass a little time. She wasn't looking for anything heavy. Just background noise, a few fan edits, maybe a clip from The Voice. But then she froze. A grainy video began playing on her screen, one she had never seen before. One Blake had surely never intended her to. The caption read, "Rare Blake Shelton footage from early days, flushed face, broken heart." The sound crackled first, a dim murmur of backstage chatter. Then the camera steadied, revealing a much younger Blake, hair darker, face thinner, eyes red in a way Gwen had never seen. The lighting was harsh, fluorescent, and brutally honest. Blake was sitting alone on a dressing room bench, elbows on his knees, fingers running anxiously through his hair as if the weight of the world had been compressed into the space of a few minutes. Gwen's breath caught. The shaky TikTok clip zoomed in slightly, and she saw it, that moment. Blake swallowing hard. Blake whispering something to the cameraman who clearly hadn't realized he was still recording. Blake lifting his hands to his face, trying to hide tears he didn't know were visible. Gwen whispered, "Oh, Blake." She didn't even notice herself sinking into the chair behind her. The video went on, a voice off camera, someone asking if he was okay. Blake answering with a fragile, trembling honesty she had never heard from him back then. Not in any interview, not even in their earliest days of knowing each other. "It's my brother," young Blake whispered. "Some days it just hits hard. Doesn't matter how much time passes." Gwen felt her throat tighten. She knew about the loss, everyone who loved Blake did, but she had never seen him like this, never watched a moment where the pain took him by surprise and knocked the breath out of him. She pulled her legs up onto the chair, holding the phone in both hands, watching the clip replay as fans flooded the comments. "I'm crying for him. He didn't deserve to go through that alone. Why wasn't this ever shown?" Someone else wrote, "Imagine Gwen seeing this today." Gwen exhaled shakily. "Yeah," she murmured to herself. "Imagine." She set her phone down, staring at the wall as if the quiet room might offer some context she suddenly felt desperate for. She had always known Blake carried grief privately. He joked, he sang, he stood tall. But this was different. This was a man at the beginning of a career, overwhelmed, cracked open in a moment he probably never thought would surface 2 decades later. Her phone buzzed. A FaceTime request. Blake. She stared at the screen for a moment. She wasn't ready to talk about it, not yet, but she couldn't bring herself to ignore his call. She swiped to answer. Blake appeared in the frame, standing outside near his barn. The Oklahoma sky glowed with sunset, a brilliant wash of orange and blue behind him. His cowboy hat cast a slanted shadow across his eyes, but she could tell he was smiling softly. "Hey babe," he said, his voice warm and unguarded. "You look deep in thought." Gwen swallowed hard. Yeah. I saw something." "Something?" Blake tilted his head. "Like what?" The silence stretched for a moment. The horses snorted nearby. A wind chime clinked faintly behind Gwen. Her fingers curled around the edge of the desk. "Blake," she said carefully, "did you know an old video of you is going around on TikTok?" His smile faded slowly, as if someone dimmed the light behind his eyes. "Video of what?" "It's from early in your career. Backstage. You were," she hesitated. "You were upset. Talking about your brother." Blake's jaw tensed, a small involuntary reaction Gwen caught instantly. He looked away from the phone, down at the dirt near his boots, as if he needed a second to process. "Oh," he muttered. Not surprised. Not curious. Just defeated. "Blake," Gwen whispered. He lifted the phone again, his voice quieter. "Yeah, I know about it. You do. Gwen sat up straighter. When did you see it? This morning. He shrugged, though it looked forced. My manager sent it over. Said it was getting traction. And you didn't tell me? He hesitated. Gwen could hear the soft rustle of wind across the ranch, the distant creak of a gate, the subtle shift in his breathing, all signaling one thing. He wished this conversation wasn't happening. I didn't want you to see it, he admitted finally. Not because of you, but because of me. I'm not proud of that moment. Gwen shook her head slowly. Blake, why? You were hurting. I was weak, he corrected, voice low. No, Gwen leaned forward, eyes fierce. You were human. Blake exhaled roughly, rubbing the back of his neck as if the memory physically weighed on him. For a moment, neither spoke. The distance between Los Angeles and Oklahoma felt impossibly wide. Gwen finally said, Can you come here tonight? Please. Blake didn't ask why. He just nodded. I'll catch a flight, he said simply. 7 hours later. The clock in Gwen's kitchen blinked 1:12 a.m. when the front door opened quietly. Blake stepped inside, duffel bag slung over one shoulder, boots tapping lightly against the tile. Gwen was waiting for him at the end of the hallway, wrapped in a loose white sweater, her arms folded but her expression soft. He set his bag down without a word. They walked toward each other. He spoke first. So, you watched it? Gwen nodded slowly. Yeah, more than once. Blake closed his eyes for a moment, bracing himself. I didn't want you to see that version of me. She stepped closer. Blake, that was you. Just younger. And hurting. And alone. He swallowed. I hate that people think it's their business. People share things they connect with, she said gently. But this isn't about them. It's about you and me. Blake's shoulders dropped, tension loosening slightly. Gwen motioned toward the living room. They sat on the sofa, not side by side, but angled toward each other, knees almost touching. A small lamp cast warm light across Blake's face. He looked older in this moment, not because of age, but because vulnerability has a way of making even the strongest people look exposed. Gwen waited. She never rushed him. Finally, Blake whispered, That clip was from the night I almost quit music. Gwen's eyes widened. Quit? Yeah. He rubbed his palms together, staring at the rug. I got news about something happening back home. It just broke me. And then I had this show I had to do, and cameras everywhere, and I felt like a damn fraud. I didn't want my pain recorded, but it was. Some intern left the camera rolling. You were grieving, Gwen said. I was drowning, Blake corrected. And now thousands of people are watching it like it's entertainment. Gwen reached out, fingers brushing his hand. Blake. I'm glad I saw it. He looked up sharply. Why? Because it reminded me of something important. You're always the strong one. The funny one. The one holding everyone else together. She squeezed his hand gently. But you need holding too. And I want to be the person who does that. Blake's throat tightened. Gwen saw it. Felt it. The shift in him. The way his defenses dropped. The way he let himself be seen fully, without the showman gloss he carried everywhere. He whispered, It embarrasses me that you saw me cry. Gwen moved closer, her knee touching his. Blake. I've cried in front of you 100 times. That's different, he said. How? Because when you cry, it's beautiful. When I cry, he gestured vaguely. It's messy. Messy is real, she said softly. Messy is honest. Blake inhaled shakily. Then he leaned back against the couch, letting his head rest. Gwen adjusted, tucking her legs beneath her body as she faced him. The room felt smaller now, intimate, wrapped in the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. Can I tell you something? Gwen asked. Blake nodded. That video didn't make me think less of you, she said. It made me love you more. Blake blinked slowly, emotion pressing behind his eyes. Why? Because it showed me the part of you you always hide. The part that still hurts. The part that still needs healing. Blake rubbed a hand over his jaw. I thought time would fix it. Time doesn't fix things, Gwen said. Love does. A beat passed. Then Blake whispered, I don't want people analyzing that clip. I don't want them building stories around it. They can't tell your story, Gwen said firmly. Only you can. Blake looked at her for a long, searching moment. Then he admitted something he hadn't said aloud in years. I miss him. Every day. Gwen moved beside him then, curling up against his shoulder. Blake wrapped an arm around her instinctively. They sat in silence, letting the weight of the confession settle between them. Gwen pressed her cheek against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Steady, strong, but layered with echoes of old pain. After several minutes, Blake spoke again. I'm scared that if people see that video, they'll think I'm weaker than they thought. Gwen lifted her head. No. They'll think you're human. And some of them, they'll feel less alone because of you. Blake considered that. Slowly. Carefully. As if testing the thought before letting it in. Gwen brushed her thumb across his hand. Blake, vulnerability isn't the opposite of strength. It is strength. He breathed out, a long, unfiltered exhale. I just wish it hadn't gone public. I know, Gwen said gently. But maybe it went public for a reason. Blake raised an eyebrow. What reason? So you could stop carrying that pain alone. He looked at her, really looked at her, his expression softening completely. I didn't realize I was. You were, Gwen said. But you aren't anymore. Blake's eyes glistened. Not with shame. Not with embarrassment. But with relief. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead gently against hers. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For seeing me. Gwen smiled, lifting his chin with her fingertips. Always. They stayed like that for a while. Two people in the quiet of early morning, the world outside still asleep, the air filled with an intimacy deeper than words. Blake finally pulled back, wiping his eyes with a small, sheepish laugh. Well, he muttered, guess you've seen me cry twice now. Gwen nudged him playfully. Guess I'll see it a few more times before I'm done with you. Blake chuckled softly. Yeah, probably. He reached for her hand again, lacing his fingers through hers. I love you, Gwen. I love you too, Blake. She rested her head on his shoulder again, and he rested his cheek on the top of her head. The moment settled between them like a promise, not of perfection, but of honesty, of seeing each other fully, of choosing each other even in the messy, unfiltered moments. Outside, the first hints of dawn began brushing the sky, pale blue and feather-soft. Blake watched it through the window, feeling something inside him finally ease, something he didn't even realize had been clenched for years. Maybe I should talk about it, Blake said quietly. Not the video, but him. My brother. What losing him did to me. Gwen looked up at him. When you're ready, she said. He nodded. Yeah. When I'm ready. But for the first time in a long time, he felt like he might be. The ranch, the cameras, the expectations, all of it felt distant now. What mattered was here, in this quiet room, with a woman who had seen the rawest version of him and stayed. Blake tightened his arm around Gwen and closed his eyes. Thank you for calling me, he murmured. Gwen smiled against his chest. Thank you for getting on that plane. They sat together as dawn slowly brightened the room, neither needing to speak. Some moments didn't need words. This was one of them.